The family of Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States, is a prominent American family active in politics. Obama's immediate family circle was the first family of the United States from 2009 to 2017, and are the first such family of African American descent. His immediate family includes his wife Michelle Obama and daughters Malia and Sasha Obama. Obama's wider ancestry is made up of people of Kenyan, African American, and Old Stock American ancestry. Early life and career. Obama was born on August 4, 1961, at Kapiolani Medical Center for Women and Children in Honolulu, Hawaii. He is the only president born outside the contiguous 48 states. He was born to an American mother and a Kenyan father. His mother, Ann Dunham, was born in Wichita, Kansas, and was mostly of English descent, though in 2007 it was discovered her great-great-grandfather Falmouth Carney emigrated from the village of Moneygall, Ireland to the U.S. in 1850. In July 2012, Ancestry.com found a strong likelihood that Dunham was descended from John Punch, an enslaved African man who lived in the colony of Virginia during the 17th century. Obama's father, Barack Obama Sr., was a married Luo Kenyan from Nyang'homa-Koglo. Obama's parents met in 1960 in a Russian language class at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where his father was a foreign student on a scholarship. The couple married in Wailuku, Hawaii, on February 2, 1961, 6 months before Obama was born. In late August 1961, a few weeks after he was born, Barack and his mother moved to the University of Washington in Seattle, where they lived for a year. During that time, Barack's father completed his undergraduate degree in economics in Hawaii, graduating in June 1962. He left to attend graduate school on a scholarship at Harvard University, where he earned an MA in economics. Obama's parents divorced in March 1964. Obama Sr. returned to Kenya in 1964, where he married for a third time and worked for the Kenyan government as the senior economic analyst in the Ministry of Finance. He visited his son in Hawaii only once, at Christmas 1971, before he was killed in an automobile accident in 1982, when Obama was 21 years old. Recalling his early childhood, Obama said, "That my father looked nothing like the people around me, that he was black as pitch, my mother white as milk, barely registered in my mind." He described his struggles as a young adult to reconcile social perceptions of his multiracial heritage. In 1963, Dunham met Lolo Soetoro at the University of Hawaii. He was an Indonesian East-West Center graduate student in geography. The couple married on Molokai on March 15, 1965. After 2 one-year extensions of his J-1 visa, Lolo returned to Indonesia in 1966. His wife and stepson followed 16 months later in 1967. The family initially lived in the Mentong Dalam neighborhood in the Tay Vest district of South Jakarta. From 1970, they lived in a wealthier neighborhood in the Mentong district of Central Jakarta. Education. At the age of 6, Obama and his mother had moved to Indonesia to join his stepfather. From age 6 to 10, he attended local Indonesian language schools, Sekolah Dasar Katolik Santo Franciscus Assisi for 2 years and Sekolah Dasar Negeri Mentong 01 for 1.5 years, supplemented by English language Calvert School homeschooling by his mother. As a result of his 4 years in Jakarta, he was able to speak Indonesian fluently as a child. During his time in Indonesia, Obama's stepfather taught him to be resilient and gave him a pretty hard-headed assessment of how the world works. In 1971, Obama returned to Honolulu to live with his maternal grandparents, Madeline and Stanley Dunham. He attended Punahou School, a private college preparatory school, with the aid of a scholarship from 5th grade until he graduated from high school in 1979. In his youth, Obama went by the nickname Barry. Obama lived with his mother and half-sister, Maya Soetoro, in Hawaii for 3 years from 1972 to 1975 while his mother was a graduate student in anthropology at the University of Hawaii. Obama chose to stay in Hawaii when his mother and half-sister returned to Indonesia in 1975, so his mother could begin anthropology field work. His mother spent most of the next 2 decades in Indonesia, divorcing Lolo in 1980 and earning a PhD degree in 1992, before dying in 1995 in Hawaii following unsuccessful treatment for ovarian and uterine cancer. Of his years in Honolulu, Obama wrote, "The opportunity that Hawaii offered to experience a variety of cultures in a climate of mutual respect became an integral part of my worldview, and a basis for the values that I hold most dear." Obama has also written and talked about using alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine during his teenage years to push questions of who I was out of my mind. Obama was also a member of the Chum Gang, a self-named group of friends who spent time together and occasionally smoked marijuana. College and research jobs. Community organizer and Harvard Law School. University of Chicago Law School. Family and personal life. In a 2006 interview, Obama highlighted the diversity of his extended family. "It's like a little mini United Nations," he said. "I've got relatives who look like Bernie Mac, and I've got relatives who look like Margaret Thatcher." Obama has a half-sister with whom he was raised and 7 other half-siblings from his Kenyan father's family, 6 of them living. Obama's mother was survived by her Kansas-born mother, Madeline Dunham, until her death on November 2, 2008, 2 days before his election to the presidency. Obama also has roots in Ireland. He met with his Irish cousins in Moneygall in May 2011. In Dreams from My Father, Obama ties his mother's family history to possible Native American ancestors and distant relatives of Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederate States of America during the American Civil War. He also shares distant ancestors in common with George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, among others. Obama lived with anthropologist Sheila Miyoshi Yeager while he was a community organizer in Chicago in the 1980s. He proposed to her twice, but both Yeager and her parents turned him down. The relationship was not made public until May 2017, several months after his presidency had ended. In June 1989, Obama met Michelle Robinson when he was employed as a summer associate at the Chicago law firm of Sidley Austin. Robinson was assigned for 3 months as Obama's advisor at the firm, and she joined him at several group social functions but declined his initial requests to date. They began dating later that summer, became engaged in 1991, and were married on October 3, 1992. After suffering a miscarriage, Michelle underwent in vitro fertilization to conceive their children. The couple's first daughter, Malia Ann, was born in 1998, followed by a second daughter, Natasha, in 2001. The Obama daughters attended the University of Chicago Laboratory Schools. When they moved to Washington, D.C., in January 2009, the girls started at the Sidwell Friends School. The Obamas had 2 Portuguese water dogs. The first, a male named Bo, was a gift from Senator Ted Kennedy. In 2013, Bo was joined by Sunny, a female. Bo died of cancer on May 8, 2021. Obama is a supporter of the Chicago White Sox, and he threw out the first pitch at the 2005 ALCS when he was still a senator. In 2009, he threw out the ceremonial first pitch at the All-Star Game while wearing a White Sox jacket. He is also primarily a Chicago Bears football fan in the NFL, but in his childhood and adolescence was a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and rooted for them ahead of their victory in Super Bowl XLIX 12 days after he took office as president. In 2011, Obama invited the 1985 Chicago Bears to the White House, the team had not visited the White House after their Super Bowl win in 1986 due to the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. He plays basketball, a sport he participated in as a member of his high school's varsity team, and he is left-handed. In 2005, the Obama family applied the proceeds of a book deal and moved from a Hyde Park, Chicago condominium to a $1.6 million house in neighboring Kenwood, Chicago. The purchase of an adjacent lot and sale of part of it to Obama by the wife of developer, campaign donor, and friend Tony Rezko attracted media attention because of Rezko's subsequent indictment and conviction on political corruption charges that were unrelated to Obama. In December 2007, Money magazine estimated Obama's net worth at $1.3 million. Their 2009 tax return showed a household income of $5.50 million, up from about $4.2 million in 2007 and $1.6 million in 2005, mostly from sales of his books. On his 2010 income of $1.7 million, he gave 14% to nonprofit organizations, including $131,000 to Fisher House Foundation, a charity assisting wounded veterans' families, allowing them to reside near where the veteran is receiving medical treatments. Per his 2012 financial disclosure, Obama may be worth as much as $10 million. Religious views. Obama is a Protestant Christian whose religious views developed in his adult life. He wrote in The Audacity of Hope that he was not raised in a religious household. He described his mother, raised by non-religious parents, as being detached from religion, yet in many ways the most spiritually awakened person I have ever known, and a lonely witness for secular humanism. He described his father as a confirmed atheist by the time his parents met, and his stepfather as a man who saw religion as not particularly useful. Obama explained how, through working with black churches as a community organizer while in his 20s, he came to understand the power of the African American religious tradition to spur social change. In January 2008, Obama told Christianity Today, "I am a Christian, and I am a devout Christian. I believe in the redemptive death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I believe that faith gives me a path to be cleansed of sin and have eternal life." On September 27, 2010, Obama released a statement commenting on his religious views, saying, "I'm a Christian by choice. My family didn't, frankly, they weren't folks who went to church every week. And my mother was one of the most spiritual people I knew, but she didn't raise me in the church. So I came to my Christian faith later in life, and it was because the precepts of Jesus Christ spoke to me in terms of the kind of life that I would want to lead, being my brothers and sisters' keeper, treating others as they would treat me." Obama met Trinity United Church of Christ pastor Jeremiah Wright in October 1987 and became a member of Trinity in 1992. During Obama's first presidential campaign in May 2008, he resigned from Trinity after some of Wright's statements were criticized. Since moving to Washington, D.C., in 2009, the Obama family has attended several Protestant churches, including Shiloh Baptist Church and St. John's Episcopal Church, as well as Evergreen Chapel at Camp David, but the members of the family do not attend church on a regular basis. In 2016, he said that he gets inspiration from a few items that remind him of all the different people I've met along the way, adding, "I carry these around all the time. I'm not that superstitious, so it's not like I think I necessarily have to have them on me at all times." The items, a whole bowl full, include rosary beads given to him by Pope Francis, a figurine of the Hindu deity Hanuman, a Coptic cross from Ethiopia, a small Buddha statue given by a monk, and a metal poker chip that used to be the lucky charm of a motorcyclist in Iowa. Legal career: civil rights attorney. He joined Davis, Minor, Barnhill and Galland, a 13-attorney law firm specializing in civil rights litigation and neighborhood economic development, where he was an associate for 3 years from 1993 to 1996, then of counsel from 1996 to 2004. In 1994, he was listed as one of the lawyers in Buyx Roberson v. Citibank Federal S.A.V. Bank, 94 C. 4094. This class action lawsuit was filed in 1994 with Selma Buyx Roberson as lead plaintiff and alleged that Citibank Federal Savings Bank had engaged in practices forbidden under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and the Fair Housing Act. The case was settled out of court. Final judgment was issued on May 13, 1998, with Citibank Federal Savings Bank agreeing to pay attorney fees. From 1994 to 2002, Obama served on the boards of directors of the Woods Fund of Chicago, which in 1985 had been the first foundation to fund the Developing Communities Project, and of the Joyce Foundation. He served on the board of directors of the Chicago Annenberg Challenge from 1995 to 2002, as founding president and chairman of the board of directors from 1995 to 1999. Obama's law license became inactive in 2007. Legislative career. Illinois Senate. Obama was elected to the Illinois Senate in 1996, succeeding Democratic State Senator Alice Palmer from Illinois' 13th District, which, at that time, spanned Chicago's South Side neighborhoods from Hyde Park Kenwood South to South Shore and west to Chicago Lawn. Once elected, Obama gained bipartisan support for legislation that reformed ethics and health care laws. He sponsored a law that increased tax credits for low-income workers, negotiated welfare reform, and promoted increased subsidies for childcare. In 2001, as co-chairman of the Bipartisan Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, Obama supported Republican Governor Ryan's payday loan regulations and predatory mortgage lending regulations aimed at averting home foreclosures. He was re-elected to the Illinois Senate in 1998, defeating Republican Yes Yehuda in the general election, and was re-elected again in 2002. In 2000, he lost a Democratic primary race for Illinois' 1st congressional district in the United States House of Representatives to four-term incumbent Bobby Rush by a margin of 2-1. In January 2003, Obama became chairman of the Illinois Senate's Health and Human Services Committee when Democrats, after a decade in the minority, regained a majority. He sponsored and led unanimous, bipartisan passage of legislation to monitor racial profiling by requiring police to record the race of drivers they detained, and legislation making Illinois the first state to mandate videotaping of homicide interrogations. During his 2004 general election campaign for the U.S. Senate, police representatives credited Obama for his active engagement with police organizations in enacting death penalty reforms. Obama resigned from the Illinois Senate in November 2004 following his election to the U.S. Senate. 2004 U.S. Senate campaign. In May 2002, Obama commissioned a poll to assess his prospects in a 2004 U.S. Senate race. He created a campaign committee, began raising funds, and lined up political media consultant David Axelrod by August 2002. Obama formally announced his candidacy in January 2003. Obama was an early opponent of the George W. Bush administration's 2003 invasion of Iraq. On October 2, 2002, the day President Bush and Congress agreed on the joint resolution authorizing the Iraq War, Obama addressed the first high-profile Chicago anti-Iraq war rally, and spoke out against the war. He addressed another anti-war rally in March 2003 and told the crowd it's not too late to stop the war. Decisions by Republican incumbent Peter Fitzgerald and his Democratic predecessor Carol Moseley Braun to not participate in the election resulted in wide-open Democratic and Republican primary contests involving 15 candidates. In the March 2004 primary election, Obama won in an unexpected landslide which overnight made him a rising star within the National Democratic Party, started speculation about a presidential future, and led to the reissue of his memoir, Dreams from My Father. In July 2004, Obama delivered the keynote address at the 2004 Democratic National Convention, seen by 9 million viewers. His speech was well received and elevated his status within the Democratic Party. Obama's expected opponent in the general election, Republican primary winner Jack Ryan, withdrew from the race in June 2004. 6 weeks later, Alan Keyes accepted the Republican nomination to replace Ryan. In the November 2004 general election, Obama won with 70% of the vote, the largest margin of victory for a Senate candidate in Illinois history. He took 92 of the state's 102 counties, including several where Democrats traditionally do not do well. U.S. Senate. Obama was sworn in as a senator on January 3, 2005, becoming the only Senate member of the Congressional Black Caucus. He introduced 2 initiatives that bore his name, Lugar-Obama, which expanded the non-Lugar cooperative threat reduction concept to conventional weapons, and the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act of 2006, which authorized the establishment of USAspending.gov, a web search engine on federal spending. On June 3, 2008, Senator Obama along with Senators Tom Carper, Tom Coburn, and John McCain introduced follow-up legislation, Strengthening Transparency and Accountability in Federal Spending Act of 2008. He also co-sponsored the Secure America and Orderly Immigration Act. In December 2006, President Bush signed into law the Democratic Republic of the Congo Relief, Security, and Democracy Promotion Act, marking the first federal legislation to be enacted with Obama as its primary sponsor. In January 2007, Obama and Senator Feingold introduced a corporate jet provision to the Honest Leadership and Open Government Act, which was signed into law in September 2007. Later in 2007, Obama sponsored an amendment to the Defense Authorization Act to add safeguards for personality disorder military discharges. This amendment passed the full Senate in the spring of 2008. He sponsored the Iran Sanctions Enabling Act supporting divestment of state pension funds from Iran's oil and gas industry, which was never enacted but later incorporated in the Comprehensive Iran Sanctions, Accountability, and Divestment Act of 2010, and CO-sponsored legislation to reduce risks of nuclear terrorism. Obama also sponsored a Senate amendment to the state children's health insurance program, providing 1 year of job protection for family members caring for soldiers with combat-related injuries. Obama held assignments on the Senate Committees for Foreign Relations, Environment, and Public Works and Veterans Affairs through December 2006. In January 2007, he left the Environment and Public Works Committee and took additional assignments with Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions and Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. He also became chairman of the Senate's Subcommittee on European Affairs. As a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Obama made official trips to Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Central Asia, and Africa. He met with Mahmoud Abbas before Abbas became president of the Palestinian National Authority, and gave a speech at the University of Nairobi in which he condemned corruption within the Kenyan government. Obama resigned his Senate seat on November 16, 2008, to focus on his transition period for the presidency. Presidential campaigns. 2008. On February 10, 2007, Obama announced his candidacy for President of the United States in front of the old state Capitol building in Springfield, Illinois. The choice of the announcement site was viewed as symbolic, as it was also where Abraham Lincoln delivered his House Divided speech in 1858. Obama emphasized issues of rapidly ending the Iraq War, increasing energy independence, and reforming the healthcare system. Numerous candidates entered the Democratic Party presidential primaries. The field narrowed to Obama and Senator Hillary Clinton after early contests, with the race remaining close throughout the primary process, but with Obama gaining a steady lead in pledged delegates due to better long-range planning, superior fundraising, dominant organizing in caucus states, and better exploitation of delegate allocation rules. On June 2, 2008, Obama had received enough votes to clinch his election. After an initial hesitation to concede, on June 7, Clinton ended her campaign and endorsed Obama. On August 23, 2008, Obama announced his selection of Delaware Senator Joe Biden as his vice presidential running mate. Obama selected Biden from a field speculated to include former Indiana Governor and Senator Evan Bayh and Virginia Governor Tim Kaine. At the Democratic National Convention in Denver, Colorado, Hillary Clinton called for her supporters to endorse Obama, and she and Bill Clinton gave convention speeches in his support. Obama delivered his acceptance speech at Invesco Field at Mile High Stadium to a crowd of about 84,000. The speech was viewed by over 3 million people worldwide. During both the primary process and the general election, Obama's campaign set numerous fundraising records, particularly in the quantity of small donations. On June 19, 2008, Obama became the first major party presidential candidate to turn down public financing in the general election since the system was created in 1976. John McCain was nominated as the Republican candidate, and he selected Sarah Palin as his running mate. Obama and McCain engaged in 3 presidential debates in September and October 2008. On November 4, Obama won the presidency with 365 electoral votes to 173 received by McCain. Obama won 52.9% of the popular vote to McCain's 45.7%. He became the first African American to be elected president. Obama delivered his victory speech before hundreds of thousands of supporters in Chicago's Grant Park. He is one of the 3 United States senators moved directly from the U.S. Senate to the White House. The others are Warren G. Harding and John F. Kennedy. 2012. On April 4, 2011, Obama filed election papers with the Federal Election Commission and then announced his re-election campaign for 2012 in a video titled "It Begins With Us" that he posted on his website. As the incumbent president, he ran virtually unopposed in the Democratic Party presidential primaries, and on April 3, 2012, Obama secured the 2,778 convention delegates needed to win the Democratic nomination. At the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, Obama and Joe Biden were formally nominated by former President Bill Clinton as the Democratic Party candidates for president and vice president in the general election. Their main opponents were Republicans Mitt Romney, the former governor of Massachusetts, and Representative Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. On November 6, 2012, Obama won 332 electoral votes, exceeding the 270 required for him to be re-elected as president. With 51.1% of the popular vote, Obama became the first Democratic president since Franklin D. Roosevelt to win the majority of the popular vote twice. Obama addressed supporters and volunteers at Chicago's McCormick Place after his re-election and said, "Tonight you voted for action, not politics as usual. You elected us to focus on your jobs, not ours. And in the coming weeks and months, I am looking forward to reaching out and working with leaders of both parties." Presidency. First 100 days. The inauguration of Barack Obama as the 44th president took place on January 20, 2009. In his first few days in office, Obama issued executive orders and presidential memoranda directing the U.S. military to develop plans to withdraw troops from Iraq. He ordered the closing of the Guantanamo Bay detention camp, but Congress prevented the closure by refusing to appropriate the required funds and preventing moving any Guantanamo detainee. Obama reduced the secrecy given to presidential records. He also revoked President George W. Bush's restoration of President Ronald Reagan's Mexico City policy, which prohibited federal aid to international family planning organizations that perform or provide counseling about abortion. Domestic policy. The first bill signed into law by Obama was the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009, relaxing the statute of limitations for equal pay lawsuits. 5 days later, he signed the reauthorization of the state children's health insurance program to cover an additional 4 million uninsured children. In March 2009, Obama reversed a Bush-era policy that had limited funding of embryonic stem cell research and pledged to develop strict guidelines on the research. Obama appointed 2 women to serve on the Supreme Court in the first 2 years of his presidency. He nominated Sonia Sotomayor on May 26, 2009, to replace retiring Associate Justice David Souter. She was confirmed on August 6, 2009, becoming the first Supreme Court justice of Hispanic descent. Obama nominated Elena Kagan on May 10, 2010, to replace retiring Associate Justice John Paul Stevens. She was confirmed on August 5, 2010, bringing the number of women sitting simultaneously on the court to 3 for the first time in American history. On March 11, 2009, Obama created the White House Council on Women and Girls, which formed part of the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, having been established by Executive Order 13506 with a broad mandate to advise him on issues relating to the welfare of American women and girls. The council was chaired by Senior Advisor to the President Valerie Jarrett. Obama also established the White House Task Force to protect students from sexual assault through a government memorandum on January 22, 2014, with a broad mandate to advise him on issues relating to sexual assault on college and university campuses throughout the United States. The co-chairs of the task force were Vice President Joe Biden and Jarrett. The task force was a development out of the White House Council on Women and Girls and Office of the Vice President of the United States, and prior to that the 1994 Violence Against Women Act, first drafted by Biden. In a major space policy speech in April 2010, Obama announced a planned change in direction at NASA, the U.S. space agency. He ended plans for a return of human spaceflight to the Moon and development of the Ares I rocket, Ares V rocket and Constellation program, in favor of funding Earth science projects, a new rocket type, research and development for an eventual crewed mission to Mars, and ongoing missions to the International Space Station. On January 16, 2013, 1 month after the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, Obama signed 23 executive orders and outlined a series of sweeping proposals regarding gun control. He urged Congress to reintroduce an expired ban on military-style assault weapons, such as those used in several recent mass shootings, impose limits on ammunition magazines to 10 rounds, introduce background checks on all gun sales, pass a ban on possession and sale of armor-piercing bullets, introduce harsher penalties for gun traffickers, especially unlicensed dealers who buy arms for criminals, and approving the appointment of the head of the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives for the first time since 2006. On January 5, 2016, Obama announced new executive actions extending background check requirements to more gun sellers. In a 2016 editorial in the New York Times, Obama compared the struggle for what he termed common-sense gun reform to women's suffrage and other civil rights movements in American history. On January 5, 2016, Obama announced new executive actions extending background check requirements to more gun sellers. In 2011, Obama signed a 4-year renewal of the Patriot Act. Following the 2013 global surveillance disclosures by whistleblower Edward Snowden, Obama condemned the leak as unpatriotic, but called for increased restrictions on the National Security Agency to address violations of privacy. Obama continued and expanded surveillance programs set up by George W. Bush, while implementing some reforms. He supported legislation that would have limited the NSA's ability to collect phone records in bulk under a single program and supported bringing more transparency to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Racial issues. LGBT rights and same-sex marriage. Economic policy. Environmental policy. Healthcare reform. Foreign policy. In February and March 2009, Vice President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton made separate overseas trips to announce a new era in U.S. foreign relations with Russia and Europe, using the terms break and reset to signal major changes from the policies of the preceding administration. Obama attempted to reach out to Arab leaders by granting his first interview to an Arab satellite TV network, Al Arabiya. On March 19, Obama continued his outreach to the Muslim world, releasing a New Year's video message to the people and government of Iran. On June 4, 2009, Obama delivered a speech at Cairo University in Egypt calling for a new beginning in relations between the Islamic world and the United States and promoting Middle East peace. On June 26, 2009, Obama condemned the Iranian government's actions towards protesters following Iran's 2009 presidential election. In 2011, Obama ordered a drone strike in Yemen which targeted and killed Anwar al-Awlaki. Awlaki was an American imam suspected of being an al-Qaeda organizer and supporter. Awlaki became the first U.S. citizen to be targeted and killed by a U.S. drone strike without the rights of due process being afforded. The killing led to significant controversy. His teenage son and young daughter, also Americans, were later killed in separate U.S. military actions, although they were not targeted specifically. In March 2015, Obama declared that he had authorized U.S. forces to provide logistical and intelligence support to the Saudis in their military intervention in Yemen, establishing a joint planning cell with Saudi Arabia. In 2016, the Obama administration proposed a series of arms deals with Saudi Arabia worth $115 billion. Obama halted the sale of guided munition technology to Saudi Arabia after Saudi warplanes targeted a funeral in Yemen's capital Sana'a, killing more than 140 people. War in Iraq, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Death of Osama bin Laden. Relations with Cuba, Israel, Libya, Syrian civil war, Iran nuclear talks, Russia. Cultural and political image. Obama's family history, upbringing, and Ivy League education differ markedly from those of African American politicians who launched their careers in the 1960s through participation in the civil rights movement. Expressing puzzlement over questions about whether he is black enough, Obama told an August 2007 meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists that "We're still locked in this notion that if you appeal to white folks then there must be something wrong." Obama acknowledged his youthful image in an October 2007 campaign speech, saying, "I wouldn't be here if, time and again, the torch had not been passed to a new generation." Additionally, Obama has frequently been referred to as an exceptional orator. During his pre-inauguration transition period and continuing into his presidency, Obama delivered a series of weekly Internet video addresses. According to the Gallup organization, Obama began his presidency with a 68% approval rating before gradually declining for the rest of the year, and eventually bottoming out at 41% in August 2010. A trend similar to Ronald Reagan's and Bill Clinton's first years in office. He experienced a small poll bounce shortly after the death of Osama bin Laden on May 2, 2011. This bounce lasted until around June 2011, when his approval numbers dropped back to where they were previously. His approval ratings rebounded around the same time as his re-election in 2012, with polls showing an average job approval of 52% shortly after his second inauguration. Despite approval ratings dropping to 39% in late 2013 due to the ACA rollout, they climbed to 50% in January 2015 according to Gallup. Polls showed strong support for Obama in other countries both before and during his presidency. In a February 2009 poll conducted in Western Europe and the US by Harris Interactive for France 24 and the International Herald Tribune, Obama was rated as the most respected world leader, as well as the most powerful. In a similar poll conducted by Harris in May 2009, Obama was rated as the most popular world leader, as well as the one figure most people would pin their hopes on for pulling the world out of the economic downturn. On October 9, 2009, the Norwegian Nobel Committee announced that Obama had won the 2009 Nobel Peace Prize for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples, which drew a mixture of praise and criticism from world leaders and media. Figures. He became the fourth U.S. president to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and the third to become a Nobel laureate while in office. Racism towards Obama. Obama's election was also met with hostile reactions connected to his race, birthplace, and religion, and as president, he faced numerous taunts, racist remarks and generally racialized criticisms by some conservative pundits. Some also falsely claimed that Obama practiced Islam at a time when anti-Muslim sentiments were prevalent in the United States, with a 2015 CNN poll finding that 29% of Americans believed Obama to be a Muslim. Starting in 2011, Donald Trump, who would later directly succeed Obama as president, would regularly promote conspiracy theories that Obama had been born in Kenya, and therefore, was not an American citizen. Trump winning the presidency right after Obama was described by some commentators as the culmination of decades of white backlash against Black Americans achieving social mobility in the face of racist policies against them. Carol Anderson, author of the book White Rage and a professor of African American Studies, said that Obama was caught off guard by the backlash, and was surprised by how racist this country is. On September 2009, former President Jimmy Carter stated that "I think an overwhelming portion of the intensely demonstrated animosity toward President Barack Obama is based on the fact that he is a black man." Though Obama publicly disagreed with Carter's assessment at the time, in a 2015 interview with NPR, he also said, when asked about critics who believed he was making their country worse, "If you are referring to specific strains in the Republican Party that suggest that somehow I'm different, I'm Muslim, I'm disloyal to the country, etc., which unfortunately is pretty far out there and gets some traction in certain pockets, what I'd say there is that that's probably pretty specific to me and who I am and my background, and that in some ways I may represent change that worries them." In the same interview, however, he also stated that, despite the existence of racially motivated criticism against him, others who criticize his policies may still have perfectly good reasons for doing so. Post-presidency. Obama's presidency ended on January 20, 2017, upon the inauguration of his successor, Donald Trump. The family currently rents a house in Colorama, Washington, D.C. On March 2, 2017, the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum awarded the Profile in Courage Award to Obama for his enduring commitment to democratic ideals and elevating the standard of political courage. His first public appearance since leaving the office was a seminar at the University of Chicago on April 24, where he appealed for a new generation to participate in politics. When Trump announced his withdrawal of the United States from the Paris Agreement on June 1, Obama released a statement disagreeing with the choice. After Senate Republicans revealed the Better Care Reconciliation Act of 2017, their discussion draft of a health care bill to replace the Affordable Care Act, Obama released a Facebook post on June 22 calling the bill a massive transfer of wealth from middle-class and poor families to the richest people in America. On September 19, while delivering the keynote address at Goalkeepers, Obama admitted his frustration with Republicans backing a bill that will raise costs, reduce coverage, and roll back protections for older Americans and people with pre-existing conditions. After Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced the termination of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program on September 5, Obama released a Facebook post criticizing the decision. 2 days later, Obama partnered with former Presidents Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush to work with One America Appeal to help the victims of Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma in the Gulf Coast and Texas communities. Obama hosted the inaugural summit of the Obama Foundation in Chicago from October 31 to November 1, 2017. He intends for the foundation to be the central focus of his post-presidency and part of his ambitions for his subsequent activities following his presidency to be more consequential than his time in office. In May 2018, Obama criticized President Trump's decision to withdraw from the nuclear deal with Iran under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, saying the deal was working and it was in U.S. interests. Barack and Michelle Obama signed a deal on May 22, 2018, to produce docu-series, documentaries, and features for Netflix under the Obama's newly formed production company, Higher Ground Productions. Higher Ground's first film, American Factory, won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature in 2020. He received a 63% approval rating in Gallup's 2018 job approval poll for the past 10 U.S. presidents. A pipe bomb addressed to Obama was intercepted by the Secret Service on October 24, 2018. It was one of several pipe bombs that had been mailed out to Democratic lawmakers and officials. In 2019, Barack and Michelle Obama bought a home on Martha's Vineyard from WIC Grusbeck. On October 29, 2019, Obama criticized wokeness and call-out culture at the Obama Foundation's annual summit. Obama was reluctant to make an endorsement in the 2020 Democratic presidential primaries because he wanted to position himself to unify the party, no matter who the nominee was. On April 14, 2020, Obama endorsed his former Vice President Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee, for president in the 2020 election, stating that he has all the qualities we need in a president right now. In May 2020, Obama criticized President Trump for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, calling his response to the crisis an absolute chaotic disaster, and stating that the consequences of the Trump presidency have been our worst impulses unleashed, our proud reputation around the world badly diminished, and our democratic institutions threatened like never before. Trump retaliated by accusing Obama of having committed the biggest political crime in American history, although he refused to say what he was talking about, telling reporters, "You know what the crime is, the crime is very obvious to everybody." Obama wrote a presidential memoir, in a $65 million deal with Penguin Random House. The book, A Promised Land, was released on November 17, 2020. In February 2021, Obama and musician Bruce Springsteen started a podcast called Renegades, Born in the USA, where the two talk about their backgrounds, music, and their enduring love of America. In late 2021, Regina Hicks had signed a deal with Netflix, in a venture with his and Michelle's Higher Ground to develop comedy projects. On March 4, 2022, Obama won an Audio Publishers Association Award in the Best Narration by the Author category for the narration of his memoir A Promised Land. On April 5, 2022, Obama visited the White House for the first time since leaving office, in an event celebrating the 12th annual anniversary of the signing of the Affordable Care Act. In 2022, he narrated the Netflix documentary series Our Great National Parks, which later won him a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Narrator. In June of 2022, it was announced that the Obamas and their podcast production company, Higher Ground, signed a multi-year deal with Audible. The move followed Higher Ground's exit from Spotify, where the company previously had a multi-year deal to create podcasts exclusively for the platform. Legacy. Obama's most significant accomplishment is generally considered to be the Affordable Care Act, provisions of which went into effect from 2010 to 2020. Many attempts by Senate Republicans to repeal the ACA, including a skinny repeal, have thus far failed. However, in 2017, the penalty for violating the individual mandate was repealed effective 2019. Together with the Healthcare and Education Reconciliation Act amendment, it represents the U.S. healthcare system's most significant regulatory overhaul and expansion of coverage since the passage of Medicare and Medicaid in 1965. Many commentators credit Obama with averting a threatened depression and pulling the economy back from the Great Recession. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Obama administration created 11.3 million jobs from the month after his first inauguration to the end of his term. In 2010, Obama signed into effect the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Passed as a response to the financial crisis of 2007-08, it brought the most significant changes to financial regulation in the United States since the regulatory reform that followed the Great Depression under Democratic President Franklin D. Roosevelt. In 2009, Obama signed into law the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2010, which contained in it the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, the first addition to existing federal hate crime law in the United States since Democratic President Bill Clinton signed into law the Church Arson Prevention Act of 1996. The Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act expanded existing federal hate crime laws in the United States to apply to crimes motivated by a victim's actual or perceived gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability, and dropped the prerequisite that the victim be engaged in a federally protected activity. As president, Obama advanced LGBT rights. In 2010, he signed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Repeal Act, which brought an end to Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy in the U.S. Armed Forces that banned open service from LGBT people. The law went into effect the following year. In 2016, his administration brought an end to the ban on transgender people serving openly in the U.S. Armed Forces. A Gallup poll, taken in the final days of Obama's term, showed that 68% of Americans believed the U.S. had made progress on LGBT rights during Obama's 8 years in office. Obama substantially escalated the use of drone strikes against suspected militants and terrorists associated with al-Qaeda and the Taliban. In 2016, the last year of his presidency, the U.S. dropped 26,171 bombs on 7 different countries. Obama left about 8,400 U.S. troops in Afghanistan, 5,262 in Iraq, 503 in Syria, 133 in Pakistan, 106 in Somalia, 7 in Yemen, and 2 in Libya at the end of his presidency. According to Pew Research Center and United States Bureau of Justice Statistics, from December 31, 2009, to December 31, 2015, inmates sentenced in U.S. federal custody declined by 5%. This is the largest decline in sentenced inmates in U.S. federal custody since Democratic President Jimmy Carter. By contrast, the federal prison population increased significantly under Presidents Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush. According to Julian Zelizer, the presidency of Barack Obama, under Obama's presidency, The Democrats lost more than 1,000 seats in state legislatures, governors' mansions, and Congress during his time in office, adding that Obama turned out to be a very effective policymaker but not a tremendously successful party builder. During Obama's presidency, a record 3.2 million people were deported from the United States. In February 2020, Biden called the deportation of hundreds of thousands of people without criminal records under the Obama administration a big mistake. Human Rights Watch called Obama's human rights record mixed, adding that he has often treated human rights as a secondary interest, nice to support when the cost was not too high, but nothing like a top priority he championed. Obama left office in January 2017 with a 60% approval rating. Obama gained 10 spots from the same survey in 2015 from the Brookings Institution that ranked him the 18th greatest American president. Presidential Library. The Barack Obama Presidential Center is Obama's planned presidential library. It will be hosted by the University of Chicago and located in Jackson Park on the south side of Chicago. Bibliography. Books. None. Audiobooks. None. Articles. None. See also: Politics. DREAM Act. Fraud Enforcement and Recovery Act of 2009. Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. IRS Targeting Controversy. Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012. National Broadband Plan. Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. Social Policy of the Barack Obama Administration. Speech Act. Stay with it. White House Office of Energy and Climate Change Policy. Other. Roberts Court. Speeches of Barack Obama. Lists. Assassination threats against Barack Obama. List of African American United States Senators. List of Barack Obama 2008 presidential campaign endorsements. List of Barack Obama 2012 presidential campaign endorsements. List of federal political scandals, 2009-17. List of people granted executive clemency by Barack Obama. List of things named after Barack Obama. References. Works cited.